I'm Gary from Pint Productions, and this is Japan. This trip is going to mark the single farthest distance I've ever traveled from home. Flight time from New York was around 19 hours, with a layover in California. I arrived at 5 a.m. local time at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. Finally, let's hit the ground running. Our first destination is the Shinjuku area of Tokyo. Tokyo is a giant metropolis, and every neighborhood is kind of like its own city. I was lucky enough to catch the end of cherry blossom season, so I paid to see the Shinjuku National Garden. This sprawling green space is a gem in an urban sea. It was the perfect place to unwind and get a little bit of sun after being cooped up for a full day of flying. Shinjuku is full of things to see, including multiple sightings of everyone's favorite kaiju, Godzilla. I took a walk over to the Kowaguchiko neighborhood. One of my favorite series, Yakuza, takes place in a city that this neighborhood is based on. Seeing the Kowaguchiko arch was awesome, and it's pretty much exactly like the one in the games. While in Kowaguchiko, don't forget to check out the Cherry Sexual Harassment Spa. So many questions. For my next destination, I walked across the busiest intersection on the planet at Shibuya Crossing. Checked out the statue dedicated to a loyal pup named Hachiko, and made my way to the Pokemon Center. I was greeted by the fearsome and over 6-foot-tall Mewtwo. This Pokemon Center was a bit small, but the statues of the latest generation starters and Pikachu were a lot of fun. Right next door was the Nintendo store. All of the characters from my favorite Nintendo intellectual properties were on display in their full glory. I grabbed some of these Legend of Zelda pins, as well as a pen. Also in the area was the Capcom store. The selection was small, but it was fun to see items from some of their best games, like Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, and Monster Hunter. And we'll see more from that title in just a few minutes. All of that shopping sure does work up an appetite, so now would be a good time for some ramen. One of my favorite styles of ramen is Sapporo-style miso ramen. This bowl from Shinsakia was excellent. Though this style of ramen originated in the northern Japanese prefecture of Hokkaido, this Tokyo shop is making delicious and smoky bowls right in Shibuya. The pork was tender and the eggs were cooked to perfection. Even on a hot April day, this hit the spot. Next up was Akihabara. This area is known for its arcades, anime, manga, and video game shops. I had to try my luck on some of the claw machines. Here I am winning a plastic chicken nugget. Why? Shut up. Don't let it fool you though. I lost far more than I won. Arcades are practically non-existent here in the States, and it was awesome to be able to feel the nostalgia of an honest-to-goodness arcade. While in Akihabara, I stopped in for lunch at an all-you-can-eat Wagyu restaurant. The meat was marbled to infinity and beyond. Though it was pricey, I would pay for it all over again. No buyer's remorse here, folks. As an avid gamer, I had to check out the Akihabara Monster Hunter Bar and Cafe. This themed restaurant offers dishes, mocktails, and cocktails based on Capcom's Monster Hunter franchise. The theming was spot on, with weapons and armor straight from the games. The cocktails were reasonably priced and delicious, and my kiddo enjoyed the palico, or cat-themed curry dish. Only bad thing is I had to cook my own bushmeat. If you've ever played these games, I would highly recommend you visit the cafe and bar. I ended my day at Super Potato, which is a retro game superstore. I got a Famicom Disk System copy of Kid Icarus, but didn't have any luck finding any merchandise from my favorite game series, Persona. Maybe next time. Back in Shinjuku, night has fallen. Now, Tokyo's gorgeous during the day, but its real character shines through in the evening. From quiet, serene temples to the bright lights of the city, Tokyo basically has it all. Now, I was waiting this entire trip for that one transcendent ramen experience. I knew that at some point I would run into a bowl of ramen that was worth traveling thousands of miles for. What you're looking at is Golden Gai, an area of small streets filled with tiny restaurants and bars. Nestled in among the other storefronts is Ramen Nagi Golden Gai. You line up in an alleyway next to the store and wait for the staff to call you in. You then walk up this practically vertical red staircase to a small shop with just 10 seats. Photos of the staff and the restaurant are not allowed, but I was able to snap these short and admittedly terrible shots of the bowl. The broth is made up of pork and a variety of over 20 different types of dried fish. There are 2 types of noodles that are both handmade and deliver a very different texture. I was amazed by this bowl of ramen, and if you're in the area, please give it a shot. Before moving on from Tokyo, we headed to the area around Tokyo Station. Tokyo Station is a gigantic underground labyrinth, and at one point I was so lost, I thought I might have to fight a minotaur. Luckily, we found what we were after, the Hitachino Nest Brew Lab. Japan has a budding craft beer scene, and these drinks were excellent. We also hit a ramen shop known as Nippon Ramen Rin. It was pretty hard to find, and you actually have to pay a fare to get to it as it's past the collection gates. It was worth it though, a delicious soup filled with chicken flavor. Unfortunately, it's time to move on from Tokyo. We're headed on the Fuji excursion train to the town of Kowaguchiko. This is one of the most photogenic places I've ever been. I'm going to be quiet for a moment and let Fuji-san do the talking for me. While in town, I stopped into Momiji-te for a local noodle dish called hoto. The broth was light and flavorful, and the noodles were thick and filling. I had the beef dish while my beautiful wife had the pork. Each came with a serving of tempura shrimp that was perfectly fried. Please check it out if you're in the area for some noodles and mountain views. After a weekend of relaxing sessions in the onsen, we made our way via bullet train to Kyoto. Kyoto is the ancient capital of Japan and is home to a downright gaggle of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Unfortunately, our luck in the weather department ran out at this leg of the trip, but that didn't dampen the experience in the slightest. We visited the home of the Japanese Shogun. This was the site where the shogunate began, as well as the place where it was dissolved. The building is elaborate and is definitely a sight to see, but don't forget to take off your shoes. From Kyoto, we hopped aboard a train for a quick excursion to Inari Temple. If you enjoy being ass-cheek to ass-cheek with strangers and not being able to get a good shot without someone's mom in frame, then by all means, come here. Personally, I don't recommend it. Now, you'll hear that if you climb 20 minutes up, there'll be no one around, and you can take all the pictures you want. This was not my experience. Here's some of the limited footage I was able to capture. Before we move on to our next destination, I'd like to unveil a new segment I like to call Travel Tips with Gary. My travel tip is really simple. Don't be stupid. Japan has been reacting strongly to a rash of foreigners behaving badly. Certain streets in Gion are closed off to all foreigners. Ancient architecture has been defaced. Look here, this is inexcusable. There shouldn't be any need for there to be signs informing visitors not to touch the geisha or maiko or not to sit on the fencing around shrines. It's a privilege for us to be able to visit this country. Don't screw it up because you're stupid. Moving on. There's no shortage of great food to be had in Kyoto, but I wanted to talk about 2 locations specifically. The first is a restaurant known for delicious duck ramen. The signs in the menus are all made up of emoji. They offer duck ramen as well as skemen, which features cold, plain noodles that are dipped in a piping hot soup. I ordered the ramen with duck breast and thigh. The broth was delicate and complemented well by the green salt that was arranged around the bowl, but the real star was the perfectly charred duck meat and egg. This is an easy location to miss, as it's down a rather nondescript alleyway, but please stop in if you can. Next up is a curry restaurant by the name of Spice 32. This easy-to-miss restaurant is located below street level, so make sure you don't walk on by. There are 3 levels of spice available, and because I'm a sissy, I went with the medium Kyoto curry with a beautifully fried pork cutlet. The food was delicious, and the owner was super friendly. Japanese curry is very different from Indian or Thai styles, and if you haven't tried it, why not give it a go? One thing that I was super excited to do was to take a day trip off to Osaka. Before we hit the street food center of Dotonbori, we made a stop at Osaka Castle. This castle is an amazing piece of architecture, and it makes for a formidable fortress with a high wall and moat. There is so much to eat in Osaka, and there's no way I could hit everything I wanted to in one day. We started with some gyoza. These were covered in green onion and mayonnaise that was somehow just more tasty than any other mayonnaise I've ever eaten. Next was takoyaki. These are dough balls that are cooked with a piece of taco or octopus inside. On top is more mayo, as well as bonito, which is basically just fish bacon. After our delicious takoyaki, it was time for the deep-fried wonder that is kushikatsu. This is a dish made of deep-fried tempura skewers of meat and vegetables. It's inexpensive and delicious. This entire platter was less than $10 at the time of our trip. Just remember, never ever double dip in the community sauce container. To round out this culinary experience, we tried 2 different types of okonomiyaki. We tried the Osaka style, which was more like a pancake with toppings and a fried egg, as well as the Hiroshima style, which used noodles instead of the pancakes. I enjoyed both immensely, but gotta give the edge to the Osaka style. Osaka was a ton of fun. I just wish I could have spent more time there. For our final day in Kyoto, we stopped into the ever-popular Nishiki Market. This long stretch of shops has pretty much any Japanese food item you could think of. These fried bread balls are filled with a savory curry and coated in roasted sesame seeds, and they were great. I also had to try a piece of Wagyu sushi. It was delicious, but probably more expensive than it was worth. I have to admit, though, food by blowtorch is pretty awesome. If you're looking for great ramen in Kyoto, try Honke Daichi Asahi. The shop has 2 floors of seating, so waits usually aren't that long. The soup is a delicious and inexpensive shoyu. This huge bowl was only $6.50 US. They're also known for their great gyoza and have been making bowls since 1947. A must-try. That wraps up my trip to Japan. It was the trip of a lifetime, and I hope to be back there someday. But as an added bonus to all of you Pint Glass Travels fans, here are some of my favorite Japanese to English mistranslations. Famichiki, taste of soft, juicy chicken, the boneless type. Smorking area, other side. Experiencing deliciousness made me a slave to taste. Go down the stairs and turn the fountain right. If you have a lot of wish, act first, then something will change. Flavored wine. The meat broth flavor explodes in your mouth. Groin groin. Yeah, I'm not going to read that one.